Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan.
Hey, hi, Fred.
And joining us is Ken Pyle, managing editor of Viodi View and producer of Viodi TV, who brings a lot of insight to mobility issues and transportation. Thanks for jumping on with us, Ken.
Hey, thank you, Fred and Alan.
Hey, Ken, nice to have you again.
Thank you.
We're gonna start out at the top of the latest Smart Driving Cars newsletter, and a piece by Timothy Lee for ARS Technica titled, "Why Hasn't Waymo Expanded Its Driverless Service? Here's My Theory." An interesting article, Alan, that puts forth a variety of possible explanation scenarios to start with.
Yeah, I think Timothy put up, a lot of, straw suggestions up there, realizing that none of those was really going to break the camel's back. But of course, he had his particular spin on it that he thinks the reason. And I think it's really interesting because, before the pandemic, I had sort of put together this little graph of, the number of vehicles that Google Waymo went, down to the local car dealer and bought. They bought like, 2 or so in 2009, and then they bought 20 or so in 2011, and then they made about 200 of them in about 2013, 14, and then they went out and bought 2,000 Pacificas. I think I've forgotten the date, but somewhere around 2015, 16, and then they go out and they buy or put in an order for, I don't know, what was it, 60 or 68,000 more Pacificas, and then 20,000 Jaguars. And, you plot this thing up and it's boom, 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 a perfect straight line with even a little hockey stick starting on that. And you say, oh my goodness, a hockey stick is starting on, what are they going to do with them? They're going to have to put them all over the darn place. They're going to have to, and of course, it's just looks like that in semi-log. So it means it's a hockey stick on a hockey stick. Oh my goodness. I mean, this stuff's going to go nuts. And so, here I was projecting this big bubble and then, whatever. And then all of a sudden, boom, the thing, flat lines. It's as if, you're in the intensive care unit, and all of a sudden your heart monitor goes beep, and you're, whoa, what the hell's going on? And there is the pandemic. But I think, Timothy pointed out some very good things there.
Well, his conclusion seems to focus on Chandler, Arizona, and that not being a challenging environment enough. At least that's my take on it.
That's not the take I could.
Well, he's quoting Cruise, Kyle Vogt from Cruise, and from a blog post talking about testing in San Francisco, and that's so much more difficult and therefore better for working out problems. And he seems to think that
I
might be focusing
all
on
those
San Francisco.
Things. I poo-poo that. I mean, what he says is it's not a market for what Waymo is offering, I think is what his conclusion, at least that's what I read into it. And it's not that it's not tough enough. It's the easiest place in the world you could try to do it, besides, where they tried it first, which is in Nevada, where there's nothing but sand or something, right?
Well, he seemed to question, are they learning enough from just being in Chandler, that don't they need to be in a tougher environment?
I would argue no. The issue that we aren't doing this for our manhood here. We aren't doing this so that we can be the superior being on the in the universe. We're doing this to move people, I think.
But the other point that you are making, and he makes as well, is that maybe there aren't enough people in Chandler in that area.
No. I don't make that argument either. I just say Chandler isn't a market for what this thing is supposedly for. It is the best place, to me. I don't know best. Essentially, the best place to be able to show that the thing works somewhere. Okay, somewhere where there are some people. I think they can show that it works. In the desert, nobody there. Great. Why? Who? At least there's some people. And my view of Chandler, which may not be completely accurate, but my view of Chandler is that it is, this nice 4 seasons. Well, as long as you don't take 120 degrees in the summer to be, oh my goodness, what the hell are we doing here? But 4 seasons, flat, wide streets, nothing but nice white people all over the place. I mean, it's like lovely. It's almost no challenge. Almost no challenge. It is a challenge. It is a challenge because you have to have these things work well, essentially all the time. And it's not this, oh my goodness, we're going to get it to work everywhere. Get out of here. I mean, the Society of Automotive Engineers were so bad in putting out this concept of level 5 everywhere. Get out of here. I mean, my car doesn't go everywhere because, I can't, even though the commercials, as I like to say, show people driving Land Rovers or something, or BMWs or who knows what, up the Great Wall. Get out of here.
Well, the question he's posing is, why haven't they expanded the service? So what would be your take on that, Ben?
Because there's nobody there that wants to take it. There's not a market there. I mean, look at it. I mean, again, Fred, people chide me for using the elevator analogy. I still love the elevator analogy. Okay. If I want to get to call it the 8th floor of a building, okay, man, I am so glad that the guys and the gals that designed and built that building and those that are paying rent on the 8th floor were bright enough to put an elevator in there and pay to put that elevator in there. Because my option to get to the 8th floor is a stairwell. Yipes. So when I walk in the door and try to decide how am I going to go to the 8th floor, let's assume that Hamilton Jewelers is up there and I'm going to go buy all kinds of jewels for my wife or something like that. Am I going to use the stairwell or the elevator? Ken, help me out here.
Well, I have to wonder if their testing in Chandler is really about the technology. I mean, clearly it is, right? The more they drive, or is it about gaining the information, gaining the knowledge of the experience? What experience do they have to create?
Sure.
To get the consumers
you can learn a lot. You can get it to work. You can either be Frank Sinatra and say, if I can do it in New York, I can do it everywhere. Or maybe you just want to go to Peoria or Chandler and get it to work there and work your way up.
Right.
But
it seems like the experience part of it is going to be more important maybe than the technology, because ultimately you have to get people to want to use it, right?
Well, yeah, but it shouldn't be a toss-up. You should find a market like that elevator in that building in which it's a slam dunk. I'm taking that sucker. Okay. I'm not walking the steps. So what do you have in Chandler? You have a bunch of people that live there. I suspect they bought their houses there only because they had cars. Okay. They had to, because otherwise, if they don't, we'll talk about Valley Transit again.
Right.
But I don't think I would rely on Valley Transit to get anywhere. Right. So of course the deck is loaded. It's loaded to people that have cars. Okay. So then all of a sudden, Waymo shows up. Oh, look, fancy schmancy. I got this deep learning, LiDARs, and people say, hey, I just want to go over there. And I look at what you're offering to get me to the 8th floor in Chandler versus what I have in the driveway versus what Valley Transit is offering me, which is, oh my goodness. And which do I pick? Which would you pick? I'm going to use my car. Oh, sure. I'll go try the little Waymo thingy. Oh, geez, wasn't that fun? That was like a ride at the park. Do I want to do that every day? No. Oh man, I want to go and then I want Alan and Fred to invite me onto the Smart Driving Car podcast because I wrote it many times and I was able to trick it. You know,
you're right. We have a huge, if you have a car, you have a huge fixed cost, right? That you're going to have regardless. So why do you do an alternative?
Fixed cost, hell, it's sitting there available 24/7 right out of my kitchen. Right. I mean, it's almost sitting on my dining room table.
And you're already paying for it, right? I mean, the marginal cost is a tank of gasoline, right?
But these folks are reasonably well to do. They don't care about paying for it. They never mind. Of course. So here Waymo comes in there. Here I have this little gizmo that has LiDARs, BIDARs, WIDARs, deep learnings. Come ride my system. Okay. Ends up looking like the stairwell compared to the elevator that's in my driveway. So of course nobody's, oh yeah, it was nice. You're so very good. Oh, you're such good. Oh, did you go to Princeton? Oh my goodness, you're so lovely. Okay. There's not a market there. Okay. And I'll argue, okay, sure. Now we're going to go and do what Voight says. Let's go to San Francisco. Same thing exists there. Okay. They got BART. They can't beat that. And anybody who's on and now I'm going to take people to the airport. Who goes to the airport? It's people who don't pay for the ride. They have their companies or somebody else paying for the ride. So what does a stairwell look like in competition to the elevator going to the airport? It's a black limousine in which, they've always worked on there and and had their phones and and sip champagne and who knows what else. Guess what? You have trouble competing with them there too. Okay. Plus, it's like hard. You haven't even gotten it. I mean, you sort of got it to work in Chandler. Okay. And how well is it working for GM in San Francisco? What's the mean time between failure and so on and so forth? What happens if they put that stuff out there without a driver looking over what's going on? They're going to have somebody tailing them that has probably a remote kill button that's ready to put it on a hook and take everybody, just like Waymo's doing it in Chandler. And it's happening how often? I don't know. An order of magnitude more than happens in Chandler, even if it's just twice more, even if it's just same more. Not ready, maybe not ready for that. And I'm going to not put it out at 65 miles an hour or who knows, 70 miles an hour on whatever with all the, there are no California crazies out there. Of course not. But, come on, this is tough. And so I think
Timothy pointed out that there seemed to be, that anecdotally anyway, more Waymo vehicles being spotted in San Francisco as well.
I'm sure they're testing. I mean, it's been the common thought with everybody. The common thought was originally is that it would be only for the ones going to the airport that are whatever, sipping their cocktails and on their phones and la-di-dying. Okay, I mean, when the chairman of Daimler came onto the stage at CES 5 years ago or whenever that was, in the F150 whatever, that was aimed at the 1%ers. Okay, it's kind of fun once or twice. But if a 1%er sits there and compares it to having, a black car or whatever available to them, D with, who knows what else and so on, at best, this thing is gonna come up to the 1%er, to the black car, or the limousine, or the stretch, or the whatever. Okay, and so again, that's not the market. And of course, I say all this because, of course, I'm pushing what I think is the market. What I think is the market, where the stairwell is competing with the elevator horizontally, is in places where the people don't have cars. Now, you have two places to go for people that don't have cars. One is Manhattan. Don't go there. Okay, please don't even try. They got a subway. Don't even go there. Forget about it. Okay, you're going to get killed. Okay, you're not going to be Frank. All right. But other places like Trenton's.
I suspect, though, that the Chandlers of the world, and I'm not that familiar with the Phoenix area, but any place where there's suburbs and you need a car, the people that, whatever it is, 15, 20% of the people that have hard time, they don't have access to the car for, because of their income level or because of their ability or whatever. I mean, that exists in these neighborhoods, right? It exists here in San Jose.
Not so many.
It exists in San Jose.
They didn't move there.
They were here.
They didn't go live there, and they got out of there as fast as they possibly could. Then when all the folks who had cars came in there, they redlined them and made sure they left.
Not in Silicon Valley. I would contend that there's people living here that are the cooks and so forth, and they need to get around, right? They need that mobility.
I agree. I absolutely agree. But all you have to do is go to the census files and go look at where are the 0 and 1 car households. Okay, that's all you need to do. You can go and look at Chandler. I should never ask a question unless I know the answer. So I won't ask the question, and somebody's going to write in, "Oh, man, Kornhauser, you don't know what the hell you're talking about." But I'm just thinking
the fact that they have a transit system that probably isn't, it's very different. It's for those people, but it's not probably doing a great job of getting them from one spot to the other, right?
Of course, the transit system isn't.
Right.
There isn't one that's doing a good job of that, except for maybe in New York, except for maybe the express bus services out of Jersey and Connecticut to New York, and New Jersey Transit on the Choo-Choo and Metro North and Long Island Railroad, and maybe the Chicago L, and maybe also BART and the Washington Metro. But beyond those guys, I mean, it's like, and because there isn't good mobility, people leave these places, and they get gentrified with people with cars. And so what exists out there? People, the stairwell competing with this elevator is like,
Well, that's why I found that Valley Metro study with Waymo so interesting, because it seems like it's a good bridge.
I think this is a good time to jump into that. You've put together some thoughts on this session that was held the end of the week, which was titled "Driving the Future of Transportation," and this was on the Valley Metro Waymo AV Mobility on Demand project. Tell us about it.
Well, I hadn't heard that they were doing this at the Valley Metro, which, as I understand it, is the transit agency for the greater Phoenix area or whatever. They had gotten a grant, I guess, with the FWA, I believe it was, some federal transit agency.
Yeah, federal transit. FTA.
I think it was a $250,000 grant to study this in conjunction with Waymo. Where
and
Waymo,
the Arizona State University, I think.
Right. They're the ones kind of collecting the data and looking at it from a holistic standpoint. And I think it was interesting because I think ultimately where it's going is kind of some of the ideas we discussed earlier in the week about this idea of how can you use maybe some kind of last mile transit to drive traffic to maybe your traditional bus systems or light rail, whatever it is. And it seemed like that's kind of where they're going to provide, more frequent Uber-like, service. And one of the things that came out in the presentation, it seems like it was a very small sample size. They were serving people. I think they have something called Ride Choice or something now that's kind of a dial-a-ride service for certain people, and they have kind of the paratransit type stuff. And so I think this was helping some of those folks, and they were targeting the low income and people without cars with this service. But it was still very, it's like maybe not even the first inning, right, of where we are in the thing. But I think there were still some interesting results.
Sure.
Go ahead, Alan.
No. Yeah. I think what they're doing is fine. The problem is that the buses really don't go anywhere. Oh, sure, they go downtown. Okay, great. But I think that the folks who really want to go, they want to go a lot of different places. And people say, well, the system has to go to the airport. The people without cars and the people with one car don't go to the airport.
Right. Okay? They want to go to their jobs.
Okay. They want to go to their jobs. They want to go to their church or their synagogue or their mosque. Okay. They want to go, grocery shopping. They want to go to Walmart maybe. Okay. Holy heck. Walmart is so car oriented. It's, whatever, see a parking. My goodness, they don't have a chance to get there, and those that don't have a car are really stuck. Okay, and so in a sense, where Waymo should go, I argue, is they should first look at what the auto ownership rates are, and go to the places in which people don't happen to own cars other than New York City. And if you go there, then all of a sudden the Waymo service is bound to look like, oh my goodness, it's the next coming. It is so great compared, because these people, they look at their other way to get anywhere as being that stairwell. Okay. And because you look at Valley Metro, how often does it come? Where does it really go? A couple stops. When? What would happen if I have to go at 2 a.m? What happens if I'm working the night shift? What happens if I'm a cleaning person having to go and clean something after? Whereas now you bring out a Waymo service, it's got to look like, oh my goodness. I just have to walk down here and I get in the elevator, it takes me up the 8th floor, I get out and I forget about it. Are you kidding? I don't want to know about LiDAR, schmidars, whatever, Apple Play, ba-da-da. I don't even want to know whether it's driverless or not driverless. If it takes me directly to where I want to go and it's there when I want to go and basically have to wait a maximum, I don't like to say 5 minutes or something. Oh man, it looks like compared to the way I have had to go. Why? Because I don't have a car. And if I have a car, the whole thing changes. The market
So one
changes.
of the things in their survey, the ride choice, they surveying the ride choice people, and these are people who need a service, right? They don't have a car. And in the pre-survey or during the post-survey, really, 83%, almost 93% says I'd like to have Waymo service available as a regular and permanent ride choice option.
Well, of course they would. They're looking at a stairwell as the competitor.
Right. Well, and ride choice, it's whatever the Valley Metro is putting out there today, right? Which is some kind of dial ride. It's a stairwell. And that was generally.
It's not even close.
I think it kind of proves your point, though, as far as giving a choice to people who don't have a car. And they found, I think data that is kind of reinforcing some of the thoughts you have. Now, granted, it may not be in a place where there are necessarily the population has as many people who don't have a car, but they are sampling those kinds of people.
You, if you go to Chambersburg, you go to the North Ward of Trenton, you have row houses, you have density, you have people that don't have cars. And my goodness, talk about, they've been in quarantine all their lives to basically maintain their lives within a walk distance. Okay. And all of us, in other words, go up maybe to the second floor to the third floor. They've never seen the 8th floor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm overdoing it a little bit, but it's clear there is no market right now for a brand new, who knows what has, technology for mobility in Chandler. Essentially none. Okay, there are the onesie twosies and the people that would and so on. Yes, whatever. Okay, but that's not it. San Francisco, they've decided just to hop on in downtown San Francisco to hop on BART or hop on the streetcar on Muni or something like that. And there are a lot of opportunities in between the center and these Chandlers that surround all of our cities. That's the sweet spot for this. This is where the folks, I think, or many of the people that have ended up who can't afford a car, ended up living. There's, they don't tend to have garages. If they have a car, they park it on the curb out front of the street in front of their row house or their duplex, triplex, or whatever. They aren't the yuppies. What do they call yuppies these days? Millennia or whatever. They aren't the Princeton grad who just
But I think it also points to each market is different, right? Like here in Silicon Valley, we have a divide that is a geographic divide where we have all the houses on one side of the valley, all the jobs on the other. So even though it's, quote unquote, dense and suburban, you need a car to get from one side to the other. And if you don't have that car, you can't get to your job, right? So, I mean, it's needed here.
Because they're spread across, and maybe a linear bus will eventually get you there.
By the time then you have to go back home because your day is over.
I mean, it's like goofy. Whereas if you can provide the origin to destination on-demand service, a service that is oriented to where I am, where I want to go, when I want to go. To try to do that with a bus driver,
right,
apparently cannot be done because we've been trying to do it for at least 100 years. Okay. And very bright people have been in the business and tried to make it work. And they can't. Okay. Why? Because you have this driver and you have to pay this driver a living wage so that the driver can feed his or her family and as I like to say, send their kids to Princeton. Okay.
So one of the other interesting things, because obviously I have the same view as you do as far as, need to get to, an autonomous future where we're sharing rides and so forth if we really want to make an impact. But one of the things in the their survey that I found interesting, I don't know if you saw this slide, their willingness to ride in a self-driving car alone. And it pre-survey, and again, these are small samples. It says N equals 50 and post-survey N equals 39, but it was about 68% were willing to do so. And it went up to maybe 71% at post-survey. And I just have to think that this is the kind of thing that Waymo is taken into account. And I have to think that in the background, Waymo is at some point is going to come out with a vehicle that addresses a lot of the things they're learning. And, and that's maybe that may address that question of, well, why aren't they rolling it out everywhere? Well, because they're still figuring out what everything has to be.
Yeah, but I think they're bumping up into you know, if you look at the classic university look at mobility and Washington TRB type of papers, you basically do a quality of service comparison, and you'd like to have people have choice and all this stuff, and like to have a ability to either have Cheerios or Rice Krispies or something like that, but they're both cereal, and one on there. I don't think that this is where this should play at the beginning. It should find the place in which it is substantially better than the competition. It can't be substantially better than the competition in Chandler. Why? Because the competition is a car that I can afford, that I can drive. And man, I'm doing this just for kicks. I'm not really doing it because, hey, my utility is absolutely maximized by a lot if I do that. Okay. So therefore, I have to fight for a customer. All right. And the same thing, I have to fight for a customer in San Francisco. And I really do have to fight for a customer to go to the airport. Because there, in terms of my objective function that I look at in terms of mobility, the folks that are going to the airport, they're not paying for that. Okay, somebody else. So the cost of it is immaterial. All right. And it's all about, some vision or who knows what, and da. And so maybe, Waymo may have a chance to go out and compete with them if they put in enough glitz and whatever, and put enough lipstick on the pig and whatever, and do it. But man, they got to work hard. But there is a set of customers waiting out there that have been left behind by the automobile. They have, their lives are really, apparently, I hope I'm right, I think, have been substantially not made as good as they could be because they don't have an automobile. Either they don't want to drive, they can't drive, whatever the reason, it almost doesn't matter. Okay, which reason? And all of a sudden, you have this thing that isn't quite as good as having an automobile that can now give you mobility. And I think there, it is where that elevator analogy really is. My alternative is really a stairwell, and you're going to grant me an elevator. So if Waymo wants to know whether or not anybody wants to ride alone, they can just go to any tall building and interview anybody riding elevators. Okay. All right. Because when you're in the elevator, you have no idea as to whether or not there's a LiDAR, SMIDAR, radar, BADAR, deep learning, whatever, big data in that thing, right? You've become accustomed to it for some reason, and you just use it. Okay. And elevators don't say, oh, we're doing this because the stairwell is unsafe. No, actually, probably the elevator may be more unsafe than the stairwell. I don't know, but it's not safety. I mean, Waymo has in there as their promotional item, the thing that they want to do is safety.
Right.
I mean, what did somebody just come out of Washington DOT TRB and say, oh, safety, or, you want to do, you've got to be safe.
Well, that's a minimum requirement, as you say, right?
It's a minimum requirement. Yeah. It's not a thing to make it. You can't make this thing safer than I drive when I pay attention. If that's your objective, I mean, give the money back to the investors. Okay. You can make it safer than when I drive because it's not going to misbehave.
Right.
And, Fred knows I misbehave.
I've driven with you too. So yeah.
And that's its advantage. And It should just take that and say, fine. Okay.
Well, Alan, what you're saying is really what you've been saying all along. Find where the real need is and provide a service.
In other words, where you have a real advantage in a choice process in which, you know, you have A or you have B. Okay. And you say, and you compare them out. And from your perspective, everybody's rational. Everybody makes a decision based on rank ordering and picking from the top. Now, it may not look like a rational decision from me, from my point of view, because what the hell? I mean, what the hell? What's important to you? Man, you're weird. Okay. But from them, no. How else do people make choices? You know, there isn't a, you know, dice being thrown or coins being flipped in one's brain. Okay. Anytime you're faced to go left, go right, you know, but hey, left. Why? Because you think instantaneously that left is the right thing for you. Not done any other way. Are you going to take your car? Or are you going to take the elevator or take the stairwell? Well, you know, you have to be really weird. I mean, well, there are some people who want to get in shape and, you know, instead of buying a Peloton, they run steps. I love you. You know, you save money. Great. I think that's great. I don't think you're irrational. I think that's beautiful. Okay. You know, but how many of those folks are there? You know, 10 to the minus 22.
Well, we're going to stop the elevator for a second. Yeah. And we'll be back with more. But first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On their website, look for the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Great information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs can be a smart way, as you may know, to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The site again is motoetf.com. We're back with more of the Smart Driving Cars podcast with our guest, Ken Pyle. Alan, from the newsletter, the headline, GM CEO Mary Barra wants to sell personal autonomous vehicles using Cruise's self-driving tech by 2030. She made the comments apparently during the company's earnings call on Wednesday. Doesn't make you happy to hear that.
Well, no, you know, she can say that, and it, you know, it can be a pump and dump for stock or something. I don't know, to pump it up, or because somebody, you know, might think that. I just don't think that they are going to get to a point in which the technology I'm assuming I think she even said level 5 or something. I mean, yeah, level 5 is everywhere. I mean, Waymo is struggling in Chandler. Do you know how far from everywhere Chandler is? Okay. And so, I mean, really, she's going to put on the market to sell a vehicle to me that is going to just be able to go everywhere, even somewhere, all by itself.
Well, it doesn't address the issue that you bring up all the time as to who's responsible for it. If she does
she's going to have to be responsible for it. Me responsible for it? Are you joking? I'm not there to watch over it, to make sure it doesn't go like nuts. I'm going to buy that.
It's probably a subscription service or something where they have to maintain it for you or something like that, right?
Well, she's going to have, but in the end, if she maintains it for me, she owns it.
She owns it, right?
Okay. If she modifies it to do whatever, she owns it. She owns it. The part of the beauty of the automobile system is they created, you know, a gizmo, okay, that they put out in the market. They sell it to me, they collect the money, and they walk away.
You know what, though? It's interesting with some of the, like Musk's, I think actually owns the software, doesn't he? Doesn't
well, he can own the software. So, yeah.
I'm just thinking, if they own the software, don't they own the responsibility of the car? Or should they? I mean, obviously,
well,
I'm not a lawyer,
think so.
But...
Of course they own. I think they do. They can't look at me and say, "Hey, you sucker, you go get insurance." Now, maybe they can get, some legislators to then put laws that make me then buy insurance for this thing. But when I go to New Jersey manufacturers and I say, give me insurance for this thing, New Jersey manufacturers is going to say to me, how well are you going to maintain this, Alan? And I'm going to say, well, I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a tough, I'm going to see a number that is like, are you kidding? Just to go out and send the car to you, Ken, so it can take you someplace, or it can take Fred someplace, or it can go, I don't even know why I would send it out someplace. Really? Are you
drive around so you wouldn't have to park and pay for parking?
Talk about owning the software.
If I don't have to pay for parking, then I'm going to use the Waymo service to take me there and whatever. And I'm going to realize that if my car, the argument, getting back to the original thing, if they could go to a place where the people would actually really appreciate what they're bringing because of the mobility they're delivering to them, not just the joyride or the super, virtual reality ride or crap or whatever they're trying to sell them, and show that it works. I might look over there and say, oh my goodness, man, that stairwell really isn't bad. All I have to do is walk 2 steps, and all of a sudden there's like a moving walkway on that sucker, and it's like, and it's like easy, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to maintain it. I don't have to wash it. I don't have to insure it. And in fact, if I let Ken hop in, I mean, and I never have to touch the money. I don't even care. Boom. All of a sudden it then becomes really attractive. But if I try to do this in the beginning, I don't know. No wonder they're failing.
We're talking about who owns the software, Ken. There's a piece in Teslarati headlined, Volkswagen says it can profitably sell a self-driving system for €7 an hour. So not per month, per hour. Alan, you had some comments.
Well, I commented on that one. I hope you can. I guess you can. I guess it's per hour, in which, there's a little meter there that I turn it on, and this is apparently what do they have, a level 4? I think a level 4. They want to use those SAE things. Well, but it's one in which I can hop in a back seat. Now, question is, I buy a Volkswagen. How much am I going to want to be in the back seat, or how much do I really just want to be on my phone and not pay attention? Okay. Assume half of the time. Okay. All right. If you assume half of the time, that's probably I would have to be one of the bigger consumers of this thing. They've put cruise control. You have cruise control in your car, Ken?
I do have cruise control, but not automatic. I do have cruise.
Do you use it?
Probably about 3% of my trips, right?
There you go. Okay.
Freeway,
how many did you say? 3?
I'm guessing 3. Yeah.
3's pretty far away from 50. Okay.
Right.
But Ken, how much you use your cruise control?
You mean Fred?
Fred. Fred. Yeah.
Very, very rarely. If I take a long trip on a highway, maybe I
use mine probably 50% of the time, because in Princeton, if you go more than 9 miles over the limit, man, you are hosed. So, 34 miles an hour, there's like a red line on.
Yeah, but don't you have a stop sign like every 500 feet or something?
Yeah, but I understand. So, but I don't. Yeah, so I click it back. Don't get me to the don't get
He's
me
talking
going
about when he gets on
one.
295 or something.
Okay. on 295, you go, well, I guess during COVID, never mind. But I use it all. I use it. I probably is one of the biggest users, and I doubt I use it 50% of the time. Okay. And if you travel, 14,000 miles a year, which is, I don't know, somewhere near the the average or median or whichever one of those metrics you want to use for driving. Why? Because 7 divides into 14 with a 2 or something like that. So that's why I use that one. But you kind of see that what this thing is going, and you use it when you go, let's call it 70 miles an hour. €7, you go 70 miles in 1 hour for €7. So it's a tenth of a euro a mile. Okay. And so, that's kind of the, and you took it maybe 7,000 miles. You're gonna spend about the sort of the top end of the market might spend 700 per year. Okay. But that's the top end of the market. You've had to put the actuators, the sensors, the compute hardware into every one of the cars. That's a fixed cost up front, okay? For which you might get for the top end of the market a return that ends up looking maybe at €700 a year. It's tough to say that you're being profitable at that level, okay? Simply because there are too many Kens and Freds out there that don't tend to use it, that it's not going to be there. And you can go through and say, hey, the life of the car is 12, 14, whatever number of years you want. But this thing gets propagated down over the different users. I mean, to use it 7,000 miles a year or 100 hours.
Well, what is Musk charging now for the quote full self-driving?
He charges 10,000. Okay. I don't know if he's getting 10,000 for, I don't think
they were talking about charging by the month for that too at some point.
They're talking about charging by the month for that too, and how to charge for that by the month. And then they say that they're going to charge for the software by the month. Do you know what the variable cost of software is? 0. Okay. All right. And I don't know how many folks are really charging very much for software by the month anymore. Okay. Yeah, you can get your Office 360 and so on, and you buy it, as a subscription, and there, and you certainly want to go to the subscription. But, €7 an hour over the marketplace of the cars, and you're going to put this in supposedly all cars. I don't think the numbers work. However, if they do, I want to sign a contract with them right now and buy it.
Well, I guess he's assuming that the hardware costs will come down.
If in fact it is level 4, which means I can use it as an autonomous taxi in Trenton, and it's going to cost me for the hardware suite $7 an hour, and that's $7, I hope, an hour when it's actually in use, not when it's parked or being maintained overnight, right? Okay. $7, I'm saying euros a buck. Okay. I know it's not. I don't even know what the exchange rate is, but it's something close to a buck. €7 an hour is half of the minimum wage. Well, not really. I consider $15 to be a minimum wage, half of the minimum wage. When it's being used, what kind of mobility service do you think I can put out there with a human in it at $7 an hour when it's moving? Uber, nobody drives for Uber for that amount. Nobody. Okay.
Suddenly you can provide transit for people.
Then I provide transit. Then I just do the Trenton mobility side. I put up the kiosks, I put it out there, and I, just sit there and wait for that.
You do like that pop instead of paying a consultant, you do a pop-up thing like that.
Really, if he can do that, I will sign the contract right now. to buy every one of them that comes off of his line. Okay, if he gives me a Volkswagen, whatever the cost of a Volkswagen is, pre-putting all the gizmos on there and all the software, then just $7 an hour for those gizmos and software. I'm buying every one that he can make. And I'm going to put that, because it has to work. He's telling me that it's level 4. That means it works. And in fact, he's going to guarantee it, because he's the one responsible. He's the one that put it out there, and he's the one that I'm paying the $7 an hour for. Therefore, I don't have to take the insurance out on this stuff. And if the thing goes boom, it's his fault, because that's what he sold me. That's what he put in that article.
Alan, you're going to need an even bigger garage.
Well, no, man. If I can't raise there are plenty.
Yeah.
SoftBank's gonna. I mean, or somebody. I don't know. I guess I can't be like Elon saying, "Hey, I got somebody to buy the stock."
You just have to put blockchain in the pitch deck, and then you'll get all the money you need.
No, I don't want to. No. It's look. If I, honest to God, if he can do that, and he tells me he makes money, so I'm not taking advantage of him. Okay. I know that I can provide enough. I can provide mobility out there that people will pay for, and I'll become a rich guy.
So, do you think though the hardware, he's really going to do it? I mean,
well,
has the hardware come to that point yet?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, this stuff that's written in some of these things, you just have to roll your eyes. But but fine. I'll take him at his word.
Well, he's competing with Elon after all, right?
Well, yeah, no, I'll take him at his word. I'll put it out there. And if Elon ends up putting it for $10,000 in the full self-driving, I'll buy the fleet from him. Because at $10,000 front end for that, it probably works out to amortize it over the time to do that. Probably might even be a little cheaper. Okay, might even be cheaper depending on what productivity I can get out of the darn thing, and things aren't just sitting around. But boy, I'll be able to put a pitch together that I'm going to become a rich guy. Oh, would I love to become a rich guy?
Well, Alan, you do have a couple words in there. We're taping this ahead of Saturday Night Live, but you're wishing Elon Musk well in his hosting.
No, of course.
duties.
I mean, I love Elon. I mean, Elon's look. I mean, he's done great things. He just, he's taken it. This isn't that simple. But if it really is, if Volkswagen can make it available at $7 an hour, or if Elon can make it available at $10,000 front end, I'm a buyer. Okay. I want to be out there, and I want to get the first of all of them that come out. I'll buy the whole production line. Because if I do this nationwide, I need 20 million vehicles. Okay. And they're claiming it works. So I won't say if it works. They're guaranteeing that it works. So I just accept it works. So when I bring it to Mountain View or to Ken, it works. And Ken say, it works. Man, I'm there.
Perfect.
I'm signing up. Where do I sign on the dotted line? I'll give you a good deal, Ken.
I think you already put some money down on a Model 3, didn't you, Alan?
Yeah, $1,000 how many years ago? I don't know, whatever.
Well, we have one more thing to mention before we go. Alex Roy, our friend at Argo AI, in a recruiting post on LinkedIn this week said, quote, "Imagine joining Otis Elevator in 1900, but watching the 20th century happen 10 times faster. Now put that on wheels." And I thought when I read that, just look at the impact Alan has had.
I don't know if I got it. I don't know if Alex, picked that up for me or just came to the conclusion himself. I mean, I think if I've read a little bit about Otis and bringing out the elevator, and he's probably the Elon Musk of the day. I mean, he was a showman, and he had to be, because he had to demonstrate the safety of elevators. Can you imagine people getting into elevators in 1900, 1920, 1940? I mean, what's holding me up? What's pulling on this thing? Is the cable going to break? I mean, it must have been all the same things that people hop in Waymo or now as driver. Okay. But there was an elevator operator in there that kind of said, cool it, and, nice, patronizing and whatever, and welcoming and so on. I think if you go to Tiffany's in New York, maybe when they reopen, maybe it doesn't exist anymore. The interesting thing, I just visit Tiffany's. I can't afford anything there because I'm not rich guy yet. But they still have elevator operators. Or the last time I was there, which was probably 20 years ago, they still had elevator operators in there. But of course, I guess the way the story goes is the elevators operators went on strike in 1945 in New York. And it was probably more like it's what Reagan wanted to do with the air traffic controllers when they went on strike. Okay, don't let the door hit you in the butt. We're going to do. I mean, I don't know how the air traffic controllers got back in there, because you can do all that with software. Well, I don't.
They are working on it.
That statement, huh?
Yeah, but they are on some of the NASA's,
I know. I mean,
right?
I guess there are a lot of I don't know enough about it. You should be able to do it with software, okay? But I see that same thing. You go into Trenton, you create areas where these things are. People get used to doing it, but for the first at least year, if not 2 years, you bite the bullet and you pay for the attendants to be in the vehicles. Okay, why? Because the challenge is not to get the technology to work. It's to do the socialization of the customer, that the customer likes it, is comfortable with it, isn't anxious about it. It's not a joyride. It's just like, you want to get them to just get into elevators. At times, I've gone into airport people movers, and I walk in there. Where's the driver? Any driver here? There's no driver here. And people sort of pull out their phones and they start dialing 911. We got a crazy here. We got a crazy here. Everybody is comfortable riding in an airport people mover without a driver. Why? Well, there had been some people out there make sure that they were comfortable in the beginning and so on and so forth. But, those people ended up not doing much and so on and so forth. And in the end, they just get in, get out, go about their business. It's just like the elevator. Just like in 1945, 46, 47, they don't even notice that there's not an elevator operator there anymore. And if we hadn't gone through that, we wouldn't have the tall buildings in Shanghai and every Chinese city. I mean, how could you do that without an elevator? And if you have to put an operator in there 24/7, because I may have to go, I live on the 14th floor and I may have to go get a quart of milk at the 7-Eleven or Wawa around the corner, and you're going to ask me to take the stairwell? I'm not paying the rent there. I'm not buying that condo. I'm going to Chandler, where I can have my car, my front yard, my 2-car garage, 4-car garage, whatever.
This reminds me of a very current anecdote from yesterday. My son's back from college, and it looks like he's going to be working at your favorite retailer that sends you gifts in the mail every day, I think, Alan. And so it's at a big warehouse about 8 miles from here, in an area that isn't an area that you'd want to leave a 2006 Prius out in a parking lot where catalytic converters are stolen. And that was my first thought when he said, yeah, the shift is from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. or whatever it is. He has to get there at 3 a.m. And that was my first thought. We have 3 people, 2 cars. And I'm thinking we're going to be down to 3 people, 1 car after the catalytic converter is stolen. But it gets to that point of, if he had that option to have that on-demand thing, pick him up at 2:45, drop him there at 3, and pick him up later, that would be a game changer for us. And we're obviously not the target of what you're focused on,
but you are the target because you don't have enough cars to cover everybody. Okay.
Sometimes we don't. Yeah.
So it's there's just 1/3 instead of 2/3. And of course you look at those kinds of trips, the demand at that time is really low. You got vehicles available. I mean, the marginal cost of you using them is the cost of the electricity. Okay. Which is what? It's like nothing. Okay. So in fact, these are the places that you should be looking at where the competition is really bad. You're going to get your catalytic converter cut out of your car. I mean, which is a new California thing, right?
Oh,
I mean,
huge. It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem because apparently they figured out how to cut those suckers out and hide. They're gone and they go sell them for. I mean, they used to steal copper tubing. Now they're stealing catalytic converters. I mean,
I know I should just pay the $250 to have a piece of metal put on, but I haven't done it.
Jesus.
No, really, people are doing that.
No, that's what I hear. I mean, I started a manufacturing company to do that, and they're selling you one. No, I mean,
can you have it delivered to me via that retailer?
Well, that's why we love having you on those stories like that, Ken. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah. Always fun.
And for more info, you can head to Viodi, VIODI.com. Thank you also to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO. And more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us once again at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts, basically. And you can get your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.